The Galactic Empire spanned hundreds of systems, bound together not by consent, but by fear. It had existed before Earth had fire. Its flags flew on asteroid capitals and stars carved into military-run megastructures. Diplomacy, to the Empire, was just another tool for conquest. Compliance was peace. Obedience was civilization. When humanity arrived, they were studied, their biology noted, their behavior cataloged, and their culture dismissed. The Empire had conquered psychic hive minds and erased sentient suns. A bipedal, oxygen-dependent species from a death world held no mystery. What Earth called diplomacy, the Empire viewed as delay. Delay before inevitable assimilation. It was only a matter of time. The woman Earth sent to represent them disrupted the plan. She walked into the Galactic assembly with calm eyes and colder words. Helena Markov, 52 Earth years, assigned as Chief Diplomatic Officer for the Terran Union. She had no armed escort, no visible implants, and no guards. She stood alone before species that swallowed planets and said, "Earth will not kneel." The first meetings were met with amusement. Helena absorbed the insults, recorded the veiled threats, and never raised her voice. Delegates noticed that behind her neutral tone, something unsettling lingered. Her words were too precise, her silences too sharp. Some believed it was rehearsed. Others whispered it was instinct. In one session, a Kralash warlord mocked her for Earth's weak navy. She responded without blinking, "You should be thankful. Earth has yet to decide you're worth the fuel." The chamber fell quiet. Afterward, 3 member states requested closer ties with Earth. This was the beginning of the problem. For the Empire, diplomacy had rules. Earth violated all of them. Helena showed no fear. She responded to manipulations with data, to bribes with silence, and to threats with a thin smile. The more she spoke, the more uncertain the assembly became. Delegates aligned with her because they believed Earth knew something the others didn't. They were right. The Imperial High Council watched Helena's progress with quiet unease. Reports from observers suggested she had secured economic ties with 4 of the Outer Rim syndicates. Even more disturbing, several formerly subjugated systems were requesting Earth as a neutral arbitration partner. The Empire's reputation for control was unraveling at the hands of a soft-spoken woman with no warships behind her. To them, this wasn't diplomacy. It was insurgency. In the core chambers of Echelon Prime, the central throne world, counselors gathered behind secure neural partitions. At their center sat Counselor Virex, head of state security and the oldest of the inner circle. His skin was silicon-patched from centuries of surgeries, his voice a filtered tone devoid of warmth. He didn't speak first. He waited until the fear was thick. "She is not just a diplomat," Virex said. "She is a symbol. Symbols are not debated. They are destroyed." The others hesitated. The usual tactics had failed. They had attempted to discredit her publicly. She released the transcripts, unaltered. They tried to bribe her assistants. The assistants defected to Earth. They even suggested orchestrating a scandal. Earth's population ratio, cynicism to propaganda, made it immune. Virex's solution was simple. Assassination. Quiet. Surgical. Disavowable. The method would mirror a shuttle accident during a diplomatic transfer between sectors. These things happened. Space was unstable. Shielding failed. It would be tragic, regrettable, and irreversible. The Council approved it without a vote. Some believed Earth would protest, but they expected bureaucracy, threats, maybe sanctions. No one believed Earth would go to war for one diplomat. No one considered that Earth wouldn't have to. Helena was informed of a change in venue. A minor pre-summit event moved from Kara Station to a neutral moon port in the Orvin cluster. She agreed. Her expression didn't change. Her shuttle was redirected mid-flight, as planned, to the alternate coordinates. The agents boarded the vessel during docking. No alarms were raised. The ship's logs were altered. They secured her cabin. She sat, unbound as they entered, 8 elite operatives from different species, genetically enhanced. Their records were classified, even within Empire Command. Each one was trained to kill unarmed targets with efficiency, without collateral. She looked at them and said nothing. Operative Cathel, The unit commander noted her vitals were steady. No sign of adrenaline spike. He found it unsettling. He ordered a neurosuppressor, a painless disruption to disable cognitive resistance. Before the signal activated, Helena moved. She leaned forward, tilted her head slightly, and exhaled. 3 things happened in the next 5 seconds. One operative's internal regulator exploded. Another vomited blood. The third staggered backward and screamed before slicing his own throat. Only Cathel managed to speak. "What are you?" Her eyes, gray and dead, met his. "Debt collector." By the time the Empire received word, all 8 agents were dead. The shuttle was missing. The tracking beacons, remotely destroyed. The log trails, cleaned. The Empire scrambled to deploy containment narratives. A piracy event. A sector collapse. Space anomaly. The usual lies. But then a message arrived. It was routed through 30 proxy relays. Encrypted with a human quantum key, structure the Empire hadn't cracked yet. It contained a single line. You mistook her for a diplomat. She was a Baba. The name meant nothing to most of the Empire. To a few, it triggered an ancient file buried in deep intelligence archives from the early contact period with Earth. One translated dossier referenced a cold climate operative classified as non-standard myth-class engagement. The agent in question had no official name, but was referred to by Earth intelligence veterans as the Baba. No photographs existed. Only after-action reports from war zones that left no survivors. Unexplained mass deaths. Communication failures. High-ranking enemy assets vanishing within seconds of breach. One file included a human child's drawing retrieved from an abandoned bunker. A woman in black standing over broken helmets. Labeled Baba Yaga. The Empire had assumed it was disinformation. Cultural camouflage. A fairy tale among Earth's intelligence agencies to scare enemies. Now, diplomats began whispering again. Delegations refused to attend the summit without Earth security guarantees. Trade pacts stalled. Border patrols went dark. Virex convened the council again. He refused to acknowledge the failure publicly. But inside, the truth was clear. They hadn't eliminated a diplomat. They had declared war on a myth. The Empire moved fleets nearer territory, but hesitated to engage. No formal retaliation had come. No fleets. No demands. Just silence. And silence from Earth was never empty. The Orvin cluster, where the assassination attempt occurred, suffered a catastrophic systems crash 2 days later. 12 satellite systems lost contact simultaneously. Orbital control towers recorded brief electromagnetic pulses. Highly localized, too refined for natural phenomena. There were no casualties, only confusion. Every facility reported the same anomaly before blackout. A woman walking across a landing platform, unarmed, expressionless. The Empire's first instinct was denial. Helena Markov had vanished after the failed assassination, and Earth made no formal protest. That silence became unbearable. The High Council ordered internal sweeps across intelligence divisions, purging anyone suspected of leaking the name Baba. They missed the truth entirely. The name wasn't leaked. It was planted by her. Across the galaxy, the myth expanded. Mercenary companies turned down Imperial contracts. Smugglers blacklisted routes near Terran space. Even criminal cartels sent peace envoys. None of them admitted fear. None had to. One incident at Port Losken made it clear. A notorious slaver syndicate operating beyond the outer sectors received a simple envelope. Physical paper, a Terran antique. Inside was a child's drawing, crude crayon lines showing a tall figure and dozens of graves. Losken Station was abandoned 3 hours later. No blood, no resistance. Just gone. On Echelon Prime, Virex initiated directive severance, an isolation order designed for sector-wide mutiny. Every diplomatic channel connected to Earth was monitored. Delegates with Proteran voting records were interrogated. One reptilian senator was executed during a closed session for refusing to disclose private meetings with Helena. Even so, nothing stopped the spread. The more they cracked down, the more systems turned. The Terran Union issued no ultimatums, launched no fleets. and yet their influence expanded. Systems declared neutrality. Ancient enemies aligned under Earth's trade protocols. Not out of loyalty, but caution. They had seen what happened when the Empire underestimated a human once. Virex remained focused. The Baba had to be an intelligence asset, perhaps post-human, genetically modified, or an AI construct. He authorized black teams to infiltrate Terran archives. 3 separate operations failed. 1 team disappeared before breaching orbital customs. Another team arrived back at their drop ship, missing all memories of the mission. The last team transmitted a final image, an open field filled with children's toys and no sound. Then silence. No screams. Just static. The Terran delegation remained untouched. Ambassadors conducted business as usual. Their main representative, a soft-spoken bureaucrat named Chun-Li, fielded questions with diplomatic patience. When pressed on Helena's whereabouts, he smiled. She is conducting field work. That answer circulated across Imperial networks, parsed through translation engines, intelligence filters, and psychological decoders. None of them could quantify the dread it caused. The term field work no longer meant research. It meant extraction, consequence, revenge. Several mid-tier governors requested early retirement. A few defected entirely. A prominent admiral relocated her fleet to the Galactic Rim and filed a one-line transmission. I'm not standing between Earth and retribution. The Empire's internal cohesion cracked, but the High Council remained convinced it could weather the storm. They had survived rebellion, invasion, and even supernovae. One Terran operative wouldn't be their undoing. What they didn't realize was that this wasn't about one operative. Helena was the first storm cloud. The downpour had begun. In the Verhin system, a massive weapons depot exploded. No signs of sabotage. No projectile impact. Just instant annihilation. The only surviving image was grainy. A woman walking away from the blast radius with her hands in her coat pockets. Forensic scans were inconclusive. Radiation readings didn't match any known human technology. Empire scientists dismissed it as an anomaly. Imperial soldiers weren't so sure. The Baba didn't need an army. She was one. Whispers spread among Imperial Marines. Veteran units refused direct action against Terran assets. Training instructors revised their simulation parameters to account for unconventional Terran counterforces. Officers who ignored the warnings suffered. One high-profile colonel led a detachment to intercept a Terran logistics convoy. The convoy never fired. His ships exploded one by one. The survivors reported hallucinations. The colonel was found floating in his escape pod, eyes open, with the words "Do not pursue" carved into his armor from the inside. Even without formal war, Earth was bleeding the Empire dry. Resources rerouted to internal security. Trade partners vanished. Propaganda became desperation. No one believed the official stories anymore. They had seen the aftermath. They had seen the silence left behind. Inside the Terran Union, preparations were underway, not for war, for expansion. Diplomats shifted trade protocols to fill the gaps the Empire's collapsing control left behind. Human envoys began appearing in neutral zones with medical aid, agricultural tools, and security drones. Systems that had never trusted Earth before now turned to them as the only stabilizing power. Earth didn't gloat. It didn't lecture. It simply provided solutions the Empire had failed to deliver for centuries. And behind it all was the specter of the Baba. Back on Echelon Prime, Virex faced pressure. The Council demanded results. He turned to the last measure, Project Mirror, a secretive attempt to build a counteragent using combined genetic material, psychic amplification, and neural ghost mapping from the Baba's few known fingerprints. It was insane. It was desperate. It was approved. The result was Entity 9, grown in a vat, shaped by algorithmic cruelty, and trained on every Terran tactical doctrine stolen over 30 years of surveillance. 9 was not alive. It obeyed. That was enough. Its first test was simple. Find Helena Markov. Terminate on contact. Burn the trail behind. 9 tracked electromagnetic anomalies across a string of abandoned systems. It followed energy disruptions Earth claimed not to have caused. It calculated movement patterns from untraceable jump signatures. And finally, it found her, or thought it did. 9 entered the Drell ruins, a dead city preserved in a vacuum of a collapsed atmosphere. Static echoes marked her passage. The operative moved without sound, cloaked against thermal detection, camouflaged beyond visual range. She was waiting, not hidden, standing. 9 engaged all weapons at once, kinetic plasma, gravitic disruptors. The data feeds flatlined. 9's backup signal failed. 30 minutes later, a probe recovered its core processor. It contained no data, no damage, just one phrase carved into the alloy shell. You can't mirror shadow. The Empire's final tool had failed. The next message wasn't a threat. It was a list. Systems, names, dates. Places where the Empire had taken Terran envoys. Officials who had ordered sterilizations of refugee sectors under the excuse of containment. Scientists who had dissected human prisoners during first contact. Bureaucrats who had authorized psychological warfare against frontier colonies. The list ended with one line. We're not negotiating anymore. By then, the Council could no longer hide. Systems were rebelling outright, not for Earth, for themselves. Earth had simply reminded them what fear truly was. The Baba didn't bomb cities. She left them empty. She didn't torture enemies. She made them disappear. She didn't beg for alliances. She made cooperation the only path to survival.